Hey, I'm Bryan Phillips with Swell Guy Customs, and since we're in the thick of the NBA playoffs with the NBA Finals fast approaching, we thought it was only right to show you how to customize a basketball shoe. The basketball shoe in hand is the Air Jordan 33. It's the latest in the long line of the Air Jordan legacy, with its silhouette specifically being modeled after the Air Jordan 3 and introducing some new technology with a pull-tab lacing system. Overall, it's a pretty funky looking shoe. I've never technically worked on it before, but I love a challenge and we'd love to show you how to customize your own pair. So this specific colorway is covered in beige and off-white tones, and I think it might be specifically modeled after Air Force jumpsuits, but in my pop culture brain, the only thing I can think of when I look at it is the uniform worn in the movie Ghostbusters. So we're gonna make our own Ghostbuster Custom Air Jordan 33s, and with every custom, the first step is the prep stage. So we got the shoe all prepped up. Now we can just go in and start painting it. The color of the shoe is pretty close, but it's not quite the way I want it, so I'm gonna be hitting it in different spots with a custom beige grayish color. So I started with beige as the base color, then I used a little bit of light gray to dull it out, but it got a little too dark, so I used vanilla to lighten it up, but still keep that earthy beige tone. So this is a pretty complex shoe in the way that it was manufactured and modeled. As with a lot of modern basketball shoes, they're made out of a lot of different materials. The shoe's made for comfort and structure and not so much for fashion. So we're just gonna have to play with the shoe and discover different ways to customize it. So I'm gonna paint something on the tongue later. In order to do that, I wanna get rid of the Jumpman logo here. It's made out of this soft, plasticky, rubbery material. So in order to do that, I just hit it with the heat gun and some acetone over time just to loosen the glue up and slowly peel away at it. You gotta take your time and be careful. You don't wanna accidentally burn the tongue with the heat gun, and you don't wanna rip off the logo too hard that it destroys the foam material. So we finished covering the leather and foam areas with the custom beige color. Now we're gonna cover the mesh portions of the shoe by mixing that same color with Too Soft, but I'm gonna change it up a little bit and add a little bit more vanilla to the mixture just to lighten it up and add some variety to the shoe. I don't want it to look all just one color and monotone. So by adding that vanilla and Too Soft, we can just change it up a little bit on the shoe. With Too Soft, it's just a 50-50 ratio of paint to Too Soft. What Too Soft does is it helps let the paint adhere to soft fabric materials a lot better while keeping its flexibility intact. So I finished applying the paint and Too Soft mixture to the mesh and fabric areas that I wanted. With a Too Soft mixture, it's not enough just to air dry it. You actually have to heat set it into the fabric using a heat gun. It will get hot enough and the paint will not only dry but soak into the fabric and keeping the flexibility. We got our shoe covered in the custom tan beige color that we created. Next, we're gonna add some details to the shoe to make it that much more Ghostbusters. The Ghostbusters seem to get their uniforms dirty a lot, most notably from the Ghost Slimer, who covers them in that neon green goop. So we're gonna do the same to these shoes. So for the neon slime, I'm using the neon popsicle green. But since the neon colors go on really translucent, for the base coats, I'm gonna use a mixture of the popsicle green with white. The white will give it some more opaqueness, it'll go on thicker, and then on top of that, I can use the neon color on its own. So I've laid down a few layers of the neon popsicle green mixed with the white as a base coat. Now I can just go straight in with the neon on top of that to give it that real neon pop. We got our slime down on the shoe, and to complete this uniform, we're gonna add the Ghostbusters logo on the tongue and the name tag on the side strap. So on this side strap, I'm applying the name badge. For this, I can just go straight in with regular paint since I already put down a base coat of the paint and 2 soft mixture. So I've painted the logo and the name badge. I want to add some paint to this Nike Air logo in the back to finish it off. And in order to do that, I got to mix the paint with too hard since it's made out of a hard plastic material. We got all the pieces here on the shoe. The only thing left for me as a fan of the movie is the proton pack, the tool they use to bust and wrangle the ghost. Now in order to do this, it is a bit of an advanced technique. I'm gonna have to whip out the airbrush, and if you don't have an airbrush at home or are not familiar with the airbrush, you might wanna just skip this step altogether because as it stands, this does look like a Ghostbusters shoe. It has all the pieces here, but if you wanna take your custom to the next level, just follow along on this next step. Now when painting this proton beam, it contains 2 parts. There's the orange-yellow laser in the center that kind of swirls around, and then around that laser is a blue lightning effect. We're gonna achieve both of these effects with the airbrush, so first we'll start with the yellow-orange beam. I'm going to use a mix of tangerine and neon lava orange. And when using the airbrush, you always have to mix with too thin, usually about a 75-25 mix of 75 paint, 25 too thin. You can add more if it's not passing through properly. When putting it into the cup, I usually like to pass it through a strainer first, just in case there's any sort of particles in the paint that I don't see. The strainer will catch it. When working with an airbrush, it's made of multiple parts. This specific type is a gravity feed airbrush. It has a cup at the top that you pour the paint into, which due to gravity goes through the nozzle, and air shoots up from the bottom, pushing the air out. When you pull back on the trigger, it pulls the needle back, allowing the paint to push out. How much you pull the trigger back tells you how much paint is going to get out of the needle. You can also control the amount of paint that comes out based on the amount of air pressure you allow from the air compressor. For this beam, I want to have a very controlled stream with my airbrush, so I'm going to put it at a low pressure and I'm going to ease the paint out a little bit at a time. If we have to go over that same stream a second time to allow more paint, we can always do that. So we have the orange beam around the shoe. As you can see on the very inside, it's a very rich, bright orange, but then it disperses out, creating that sort of beam effect. But we want to make it glow, so on the inside of the beam, I'm going to add a similar mixture of yellow with Neon Tropic Sun Yellow, make it really pop and bright, but not too neon. Now for the yellow, because we're putting it on the inside of the beam, we have to keep it at a pretty low pressure, keep it really close to the shoe, and just take your time and trace that line with the yellow. So we got our colors down for the beam, but it's just not glowing quite enough. It needs a nice bright center, so I'm gonna take a pale yellow and just with a detail brush, just trace that line and create a solid line throughout that beam. And what you can even do is after putting on that line for the center, add another pass through of the neon yellow over it just to make it a more smooth glow. We've got our beam down, now we just need to add the lightning that circles around the beam. In order to do that, we're going to use a similar method to adding that, except it's going to be a lot less fluid and more staticky. I actually learned this on the DeJesus Customs YouTube channel. They have a YouTube channel that shows you all kinds of airbrushing tricks like this, so you can also check out that video if you want some more details on how to create this lightning effect. So for this lightning effect, it's going to be a blue lightning. So I'm going to mix the Neon Bahama Blue with white for the base layer first. So for the lightning, it's going to circle around the beam, sometimes going in front of the beam, sometimes going behind the beam. So we just have to pay attention to that. Similar to how we did the beam, we're going to keep our line close and skinny. But for this, we don't have to be so fluid. We can be a lot more staticky because that's what lightning is. Now, like we did with the laser beam, I'm going to take white paint and a detail brush, and I'm going to create the lightning bolt lines. And we're done. We created our custom beige color. We played with a little bit of neon slime, painted our logos, and learned a couple airbrushing tricks along the way. And now, these Air Jordan 33s are ready to do some ghost busting. Thank you so much for watching. I'm Bryan Phillips. You can check out the rest of my work on Instagram at Swell Guy Customs. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe. Thanks again so much for watching. We'll catch you next time.